I think this was probably one of the first affinity groups I started going to. And it's, if you guys have been, it's one of the best. They've got lots of fun things going on. And when we meet in person, I think it's probably one of the biggest ones. You guys get a big draw. So that's great. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here if I can do this correctly. It worked just a second ago, so let's make sure it still does. And hopefully I can do this correctly. Okay, here we go. So today, I really want to talk to this presentation is really for anyone. If you're thinking about starting a business, maybe a side hustle, or if you own your own business, or perhaps you're just wanting to be more entrepreneurial within your corporation, this presentation is for you. And so anyway, just everyone really has that entrepreneurial spirit within them. In fact, the statistics are that anywhere between 50 to 75% of people really want to start their own business. They have that entrepreneurial spirit, but only 10% actually do. So, and I think that what I find with women is that just like the statistics with, people, men in the workplace, when they see a job description, they think they only have to check maybe one box at the most before they'll apply. I think with business ownership, I think women kind of have that same idea. They don't necessarily think that they can do it. So I think I want to help you understand what is important with a business or just tapping into your motivation. This is what we're going to really talk about today, because the motivation really provides that fuel for you. And if you keep yourself motivated in whatever you do, you're going to have a lot more fun, enjoy what you're doing, and do a better job. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So this is, as Stella referenced, my dad actually took a buyout. He actually worked for the federal government. I grew up outside the Washington, D.C. area, and they were getting ready to move his branch of government to New Orleans area, and he didn't want to move there. And so he had a half a day to decide, called my mom and took the buyout. He got 2 years of severance of his salary, essentially, and was out looking for businesses. We had always, when we took family vacations, that was what we did. We looked for businesses. We looked at a cave, almost bought a cave, but my mom got the heebie-jeebies and wouldn't let him do it. And it was in Arkansas. He looked at a lot of different things, but we'll go into that a little bit more. But I saw him make mistakes, and I saw him fix them. So that's one of the paths. I also was in public relations. I had a career in public relations and marketing for quite some time, and started my own company for a while, especially when I had when my kids were little, and it was very difficult to work full time. And then just fell into FranNet. But one of the things I had set out was I wanted to help people in career transition, because I had been put in career transition, not on my own choice. And so once I ran into FranNet, I realized that we do work with a lot of people in career transition. And then I found Inforum when I moved here, and it's like I found the Women on the Move group. So it was awesome to be able to help people, because that's really, when I think about my personal mission, that's really what it is even if I work with people who are looking at franchises, if they don't buy, I want to get them to a better place in their career than they were when we started. And so this is a little bit about FranNet. All of my services at FranNet are free of cost to those who are interested. Match people with franchises, but also kind of help them get going in a direction of a career that may be good for them. If you've gone to Lady Bosses, you probably heard some, I've had SBDC speakers before. They're part of a national partnership that we have, SBDC and SCORE. It's both part of the Small Business Administration. And so today I'm going to talk about several things, but my own story. I'll tell you a little bit more about my dad, that Stella's already heard this story, but and talk about motivation and values and passion. And we hear a lot about passion. We'll get into that in a second, because I'm going to help you look a little bit more toward motivation and values than passion. There are 4 different business motivation values system profiles. A few of you took advantage of the assessment that I have called the BEST test. And you're welcome at any time to take that. But I think the presentation will be valuable to you even if you haven't, because I'm going to describe some of these profiles. And then we're going to talk about the kind of businesses and maybe how that might fit into your work life. I think if you can, focus on your what motivates you, you're going to be better in whatever you do. So here's a story about my dad. That's him when he was very adventuresome. He went to 3 different universities, and one of them was the University of Alaska, back before it was even a state in Fairbanks. And but he ended up going to work for the federal government at the Naval Oceanographic Office. He made maps at the bottom of the ocean. But it was one of these, he'd been there for like 20 years, lots of politics, lots of strife. He hated government waste and he saw it firsthand. So that really bothered him. But he was really looking for balance. And he had, like I said, I'm a 5th generation entrepreneur. And so he was generation 4, and he always had something on the side. But he hadn't had a full-time business. He had been, like I said, an employee. But his passion was antique furniture. And so, of course, he bought an antique store. But he didn't really look at the role of the business owner. So in an antique store, he had to sit behind the cash register. He loved talking to people when they came in, but he really needed more freedom and flexibility, wanted to get out about in the community, and it just didn't lend itself to that. And so he sold it. And that was his mistake, that he made, but he didn't really take much of a loss. And then he ended up getting in the real estate business. We moved to outside of Springfield, Missouri, so a little bitty town. And he bought a bunch of small, inexpensive, we called them a little bit of a slumlord. There was no real slums there, but he had inexpensive rental houses. And then he did antique picking on the side. So that was, before I even knew that was a thing, I wasn't really, it was interesting to learn what he actually, that there was something like now on the History Channel, if you've ever seen the American Pickers. He did that with primitive furniture in Missouri. So just to kind of break down, a little bit about this story and maybe how it might apply to you. Okay, so he's sick of his job. He never wanted to wear a suit again. He wore leisure suit to my brother's wedding, if you guys remember leisure suits. He actually did wear one to mine, a real suit, but he really was looking for balance. And I think what happens a lot of times when people end up getting started in a business, it can be, there's a trigger that happens. For some people, it's COVID. I'm getting slammed with people interested in businesses, those who have lost their jobs, but also those who haven't, because they've seen how things change and they want to do something different. So for him, the severance and that was the trigger. I mentioned this test. We're going to go over these profiles here, the achiever, belonger, emulator, and societal. But if you took the BEST test, you saw quite a few pieces of information that hopefully will be helpful to you. And if you did, I'm glad to go over the results with you to maybe help you with no cost, to help you kind of see where you might be able to apply some of these strengths and motivations. So the 4 different styles, and I think for many of you didn't take the test, so kind of as I describe these different motivation value styles, I want you to think about where you might fit, okay? And everyone has a little bit of all of these. And don't pay attention to the name, but pay attention to what it does. So achiever, they're the people who are always in charge. They're the boss people. They don't like to waste people's time. Belonger, team leader, team player. These are the people that make you feel like you're part of the team. They're kind of the warm people that you always feel at home around. Emulators, the influencer. They tend to be very out there and bold. We'll talk about that here in a second. And societal, they tend to be the difference makers. They're the ones who, think more about the greater good than themselves. They tend to be highly educated and like to learn. So we're going to dig into this. So as I go through these, if you want to throw in the chat box what you think you may be, and maybe if you want to throw in a percentage, that'd be great. But kind of when we go over these, think about how much of these different profiles you may have. So the achiever, okay, so this is like king of the jungle or whatever. They're in control. They're all about power, growth, achievement, results. They want to dominate. They want to be, they want to own the market share if they can. They're very business oriented, but they're very committed to their work and their family. And they're the kind of people who it's like, I need to provide for my family. That's you might hear them say that. They usually say, I don't want to waste your time. They're the people who want to quick go through stuff. And they lead very conventional lives. So I was trying to look for people, and especially women, since this is a presentation geared to women, who might fit that profile. And you'll see Chandra rhymes, she talks about being driven, that type of thing. It's okay to be on top. And so that's a good example. Warren Buffett is another good example of an achiever. So think about that. And if you feel like you have some of those attributes, this is the next thing. We're going to talk about the kind of businesses that may make sense for you, the types of businesses. So, anything that you can have an impact on policy or procedure. So think about that. If you're working for somebody else, are you able to make that impact on the policy and procedures? You need growth. You don't need something that's stagnant or going backward in time. For my clients who are more achiever oriented, and sometimes that's not their primary, maybe secondary, they're empire builders. They want to own multiple units of a business. Not just one is going to be satisfactory, or that if it is, it's going to be a very large one. They want proven systems, established products. It's a little bit more practical than some. They can't resist a deal, and they also are doing things for the long haul. They're not like in and out. There are some people who are in and out of businesses. That's not the achiever type. So if you think you may be that, go ahead and type that into the chat box. We're going to go to the next profile. The next profile is a belonger. And really, I'd like to cross that out and change it to team leader. That's really, when you think about it, a belonger, that's really more of what it is. But they're the kind of people that make you feel like you belong, right? You're part of the team. They're very family and home oriented. Honest. Oh my gosh. Anyone who's super honest, that they probably have a big chunk of belonger in them, and they don't like fluff, and they don't like, people embellishing, that type of thing. Not impulsive. They're traditional, predictable. Like I said, very team oriented and loyal. So that's why I like the dog analogy. I started looking at people who might fit this profile. And the best one I could think of is one of my clients who owns a Club Pilates. This is Sharon Seymour. She's in Shelby Township. And she actually, and her husband, Jason, really embodies the belonger profile. She's the person that always makes you feel at home. When she asks you how you're doing, she means it. I mean, that it's from the heart. And they have built such a loyal following that they are on top. They, had to be closed down for 3 months during the pandemic. And now they are at the top quartile of all of the Club Pilates in the nation, including some of these areas that have been able to stay open the whole time or more often, right? So anyway, that gives you an idea about her. And let's see the next. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the kinds of businesses that belongers like to have. They usually, for the most part, they tend to be in a brick and mortar type of location, because they're the ones creating that atmosphere and making you feel good and warm and that type of thing. But there are a few other businesses, but it's usually conservative, conventional. Nothing fancy. They're more practical. They're less likely to drive a fancy car. They might be in a Ford Focus or Escape or something like that. They tend to involve their family and friends in their business. So, and what's interesting about Sharon is that she has her best friend from when she was little is her general manager. And of course, she's in business with her husband. So she's a good example of that. Most of our franchises are belongers. Why isn't this moving? Just a second. There we go. The next one is the emulator. And the Peacock is really a perfect example of an emulator. They tend to be, you notice the emulators out there, they tend to be more extroverted. They like a challenge. They really, really highly crave flexibility. They're independent. They're enthusiastic and sometimes impulsive. They like variety, and they're the ones who are going to take more risks. So when I look at franchises for people who are emulators, they're going to be more likely to get into something that is more of an emerging brand, and they may be more interested in that kind of thing. They also care about prestige for the most part in some way, shape, or form. I think Sarah Blakely, who, I think about right now, it's like, it's time to bring out the Spanx when we start getting out in public. I don't know if you're like me, but I definitely hit the weight gain during the COVID. I probably have the COVID-19. I'm trying to get rid of that, but I think the Spanx will help. But if you think about Sarah, she created a whole new industry. She was very innovative. And she's always been funky. She, is wearing blue nail polish before anyone else, that kind of thing. So that gives you an idea. Lady Gaga is kind of a more in-your-face example of a emulator. And like I said, I am an emulator achiever. That's my profile. And so the big thing, okay, so if you're in the corporate world and you're an emulator, you need to make sure that you have a company that gives you that flexibility to let you do your, to be innovative. And if you don't, you're going to feel like you're suffocated. So I want to make sure that you're doing that. Or in a business, obviously you have a lot more ability to do that. And then within the franchise world, emulators tend to be consultants. They tend to have a little bit more wiggle room. If I was in a franchise that had a whole bunch of highly structured rules where I had to set up a store a certain way and only charge a certain price and that kind of thing, it probably wouldn't be a good fit for me or other emulators. They like recognition, rewards, instant gratification. Like I said, they're impulsive, but they're really into growth and income. You can, and they like prestigious products. Sometimes they'll be okay with a business that may not be quite as prestigious, as long as they feel like it has a lot of upside and they can make a good amount of money in it. And a little back office involvement. Okay. The last type of profile, and again, as you're looking at these, so we started with the achiever, next was the belonger, the team person, next was the emulator, more of a risk taker, that type of thing. And now we're going to the societal. Okay, this is what's interesting about the societals. Most of the people, when I offer this best test, most of them have a societal component in because they like to learn. So I put the wise owl as their symbol, and they tend to be the ones that are have advanced degrees. If they don't have advanced degrees, they probably are learning. They're constantly learning, researching, that kind of thing. They tend to care more about the greater good than they do about themselves. So you might see them involved in environmental causes or charities, that kind of thing. It tends to be a big area that's important. We see a lot of military people who have a societal profile, and a lot of military and I forgot, and nonprofit people. So that's something that we look at. And so they want harmony, but impact is probably the biggest thing that I see that they want. And if I hear somebody say impact, they usually have a societal component to their profile. Or at least, like for me, it's my third component, and it's pretty high. I do care about making a difference, but I think for me, I probably, it's not as important as some of the other things. Anyway, Ellen DeGeneres, I think, is a really good example of somebody like that. I did have Meghan Markle, but I think she's a little too controversial right now, but somebody who wants to make the world better. tends to be that kind of person. They're involved in charities, that type of thing. And the kind of businesses, again, they've got to be able to contribute, make an impact. But they also tend to like very simple concepts, even though they're probably, they're very knowledgeable and that type of thing. They really like something where you push the easy button. And then they're looking for hands-off management, but impeccable company standards. If you score as a societal and you're in a company that's a little bit less than impeccable, you're going to have some problems. So think about that. If you're having any, a lot of people have, I call it career pain. So that's something that, for some people, it may be that they just need to find a new place to work. For other people, business may be a good thing to do. So, yeah. And so how are you doing on time, Stella? Are you there, Stella? Let's see. What I'd like to do is have you think about, when you came in here, you probably have thought about maybe what motivates you, what gets you up and going in the morning. And we all have a passion. And like I said, for me, that there's a lot of things that motivate me. And my passion, really, I've got a couple. One is I love estate sales. My husband and I, that's what we do. Kind of got a little bit of that from my dad, but we go out and look for mainly art and glass. And we even have an eBay store to kind of pay for our habit and sell stuff before we buy other things. And I think, in terms of motivation, I'm an emulator achiever. I really do care about having that flexibility to innovate. So, the consulting type of a career is right for me. I do want to make an impact, though. So I've got, like I said, the societal in me, but not quite as strong as these other categories. So I don't know. Let's see. I'm not doing a good job looking at the chat. What do you guys think? Okay, let's see. Somebody said they want to be societal. I'm going to look through here. Okay, Kendra's an achiever. Yes, you are, Kendra. Kendra works like 90 hours a week, I think. And Linda is an emulator societal. And I think one thing, Linda, do you mind if I pick on you a little bit? You okay?
No, go ahead. Not at
okay. So when I saw your assessment come through as an emulator societal, I thought, what a perfect combination for what you do at Easter Seals. So most emulators tend to be people who are going to make an impact on policy, and they're going to be the people who encourage people that, so, asking for money is a great thing for an emulator to do. They probably are much more bold about that than the other categories. So they sometimes are in sales, that kind of thing. And so development. And then when I saw that your secondary was societal, so the nonprofit side, I thought, oh my gosh, you're just made for what you do. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. What do you think, Linda? Did we hit you on?
Yes, and actually when you're sharing that slide, I could not believe how spot on it was. It was like, oh my gosh, like you guys are like jumped into my brain and figured me out. But yeah, no, I do agree with everything. Like exactly what you just said. I just feel like, right where I'm at is right where I need to be. And being an emulator, being out with the people and talking, that is my thing.
Yeah. And it was really interesting. A lot of people who do this, they maybe are in a place where maybe things aren't spot on for them. And so that's something that this can help with. I know, Chris, you said you're a belonger with societal on deck. I love it. And, it's interesting because I've been getting a lot of that combination lately, people looking at businesses. I think that it's a more rare combination, the belonger with societal. But we are seeing more and more societals. Even I think I failed to mention that a lot of millennials tend to be more societal. They care more about greater good than they do. I started my career in the 80s when everything was people wanted to make a lot of money and all those, and cared about, brands and that kind of thing. I don't know if that influenced me, but it definitely is different than what I see as some of the younger generation. But it's challenging to find the right business, because you have to, provide that sort of that team feeling, but also, are you making an impact with people? So that's cool. Anyone
Now,
else?
Carol,
Yeah.
as you're talking about that and talking about the millennials, excuse me, what I'm thinking is the importance of knowing who you are regarding your values and things when you interview
Oh,
for a
absolutely.
position. Because if you're in, that's where I personally lost it in the corporate world, is when we became all about shareholder value. Because to me, customer value was the most important value for a business.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we started looking at shareholder value, and I was on special projects and talking about things that to me made no business sense for us to even be looking at, but they were looking at it from a shareholder value thing. So I left the corporate world, and here I am.
Right. Because that was conflict. And that's what you have to really look at. Somebody who may be an achiever, they may be okay, they may be okay with just looking at shareholder value. That's okay. But they also, what I find with that category is they want to make money for themselves. They get tired of making money for somebody else. But I think that there's a lot of us that get disenchanted with the corporate world for whatever reason. And that's a very good point. That it can get a little disgusting when they just care about that instead of the customer.
Well, yeah, cognitive dissonance. Your head is going in one direction because the job is requiring you to do so, but your heart is being pulled in another direction because that's who you truly are.
Right.
And that's where your strengths lie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how are we doing on time?
We're doing great. Does anybody have any questions for Carol? We got a couple minutes. We can turn it over for questions.
Yes. Maybe I lost at the beginning. If I want to go through the test,
Oh, I've got it. I'm going to hit the next screen. So there's, let me see, where is it? Why isn't it moving forward? Okay, so here's there's two different tests. They're essentially the same thing, just branded differently. So number one, the best test is what I offered out. That just is for just general entrepreneurial, test. Again, it's free. You'll get the complete report if you just fill that out. But if you are interested and think you might want to take a look at a franchise, then you can do the other one. If you do that best test and you still later want to look at a franchise, I can get you the other portion of it. But yeah, it's really cool to do. And I know some of you who did it, and I was going to give out door prizes. So I'm going to give out, okay, who was that who just asked? Because I'm just seeing my presentation. I'm not seeing you guys about the test. Who just asked about that?
Yeah, that is perfect.
Gemma, okay, Gemma. So I'm giving out gift certificates to Sweetwater's Coffee. It's one of my clients, and my client has two locations in Macomb County, but they have locations all over the place. And it'd be great to help him out. He's a local owner, as are all the Sweetwater's people. So they need our help right now. So Gemma, and then the people who, Linda, some of the people who chatted, I'm going to give you guys gift certificates. Does anyone,
Great.
Yeah. So anyone else want to make a comment or have a question? I'll give you a gift certificate.
Carol, it's Lisa Makala. I do have a question. Hi, good morning. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good. I've really enjoyed this. I'm so bummed that I missed the evaluation in your email, and so I just did it, and it was really fascinating. And
do you want to share what you came out as?
I came out as a societal emulator, and my work style is promoter.
Okay. Now that does not, if you guys know what Lisa does, I mean, she really helps us chill out, and then she's good at probably promoting, right, her business. So, and that actually is probably one of the more rare combinations.
That figures. I never do anything conventionally. But my question for you is, is there a particular, this is a loaded question, so
Okay.
fair warning. And is there a type of profile that franchisors typically are more interested in working with?
Okay. So I will tell you that the most common profile is a belonger. Okay. For people who buy, they tend to like to follow systems and that type of thing. But there are when I get somebody who, and usually achievers, they can do almost anything. But like with your profile, I'm going to make sure that you're into a business. I'm going to have fewer to probably look at for you, but you're going to have to make sure that you're in something that has a good cause. I've got a lot of sustainability type businesses, and really what you're doing now, Lisa, I'm like, wow, you're like, right on. But so it sometimes limits, or we have to find an ability for you to get that, get yourself fed, that, your motivation fed. So for instance, I've had a couple of clients who they wanted to help a certain type of person get jobs. So I had one who worked with refugees. And so part of her goal was to be able to hire refugees because they have a harder time getting jobs. And so that was how she carried out her societal, so she could get into a more traditional business that other people could get into. But if she didn't have that way to feed her societal element, it might not have been successful. So those are some of the things. And so it's more than just the test. When I sit down and work with people, I kind of help you kind of figure that out. And then I also look at the bars across, because sometimes I find people who on any given day, they might profile a little differently. I had some people who may, like I'm kind of neck and neck with my emulator and achiever. So there are times when I've been an achiever emulator, but I think that I kind of know for me what's important and what I need to focus on. But yeah, that's so for you're going to be just a little bit more challenging to work with.
Well, then,
all right.
Somebody who has a much more she profiles as the belonger achiever combination tends to be the most the highest number, but we have people who buy in every combination, and we're seeing many more societals. When I first started with FranNet in 2008, we really didn't have a huge number, but we are, like I said, we're seeing more. And then I can almost tell you, I guessed on somebody who I had a conversation with. She was an achiever societal. And just hearing her talk, I thought, and that's her disenchantedness with corporate, is she's not able to get her societal part. She's able to get their achiever fed, and she's making a gob of money and that kind of thing and doing really well, but she needs to figure out how to do that. So maybe she needs to get involved. Maybe it's something outside where she gets involved in some kind of charity or something like that. Or maybe she needs to, tweak her job, or maybe it's a business. So
thank you, Kara.